Welcome to the Mortgage Podcast, where we give tactics, strategies, and inspiration to get you to 10 plus loans per month. We talk a lot about how to make a ton of money in mortgage while also being happy and thriving in your personal life. If you want to be a mortgage millionaire, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Hey, it's Todd Scrima here. Thanks for tuning in. We're doing the Mortgage Podcast, and today we're talking about the secret to the 3 different lead types. So I'm going to explain this, and you've probably heard this before, but maybe I will spin it a little bit differently. As long as I've been in the business, when I was about 5 years into the business, I went to an event and they said, hey, there's different types of leads, and as long as you're in this business, you're going to have these 3 different types of leads. And I'm going to describe this in a certain way, give an overview, and then give some examples, and then talk about towards the end what we need to do to get better leads and more of the good ones. So the most obvious type of lead are the people that love you, the people that are I've heard it described as good to great clients. It's about, for most businesses, it's about a third of all the people that you run into, of all the leads that you get. So these are the people that are like, yeah, I'll come in at 2:00, no problem. Yeah, I'll bring all my stuff. You know, they just want to be served and they want help. And they're like, I'm a very good client. Like when I go into a restaurant, I'm like, treat the waitress great. I chat them up. If I go into Nordstrom's, I'm, not thinking of, if I see something I like, I'll just buy it, things like that. So I think we all know what a good lead looks like. I think we've all been that. And maybe we've been some of the other two as well. A third of people will use you for information. Now, that sounds kind of mean, right? Like 33% of your leads will just use you for information. That means that they probably don't intend to use you. Some people call them tire kickers. Some people say that they're untrusting clients. There's all kinds of ways to describe them. But they're not, when they call your business, they're not really looking for what you're offering. Maybe they're looking for information. I think realtors get this a lot because they're like, yeah, I just want to find out the price of that house or whatever. These people it's confusing because they sometimes pose as interested clients, but they're really not. Or vice versa. You think that they are just using you for information, but really they intend to, say, buy a house or get a mortgage. So that's about another third of leads. And then you got about another third that is what I call fun but hopeless. And that means that they're good people. They just can't buy or afford your product or service. And in the loan business, this would be like, maybe if I were to get a lead and they just had a bankruptcy 2 weeks ago and they've got no down payment and maybe they don't have a job, right? They may be nice people, but you can't help them because they can't afford your product or service. So when we look at that, a third, and a third. So we got about a third good to great clients. We got about a third uses you for information. And we've got about a third that maybe want to buy your product or service, but they can't afford it. They're not going to buy it because they can't buy it. So you're like, Todd, all that kind of makes sense. And if we look at all of our leads, like I'll give you an example. For as long as I've been doing this, a loan officer that gets 100 leads will close about 20 loans. About 20% of your loans go to closing. Well, those, by and large, that 20%, those are the people that are good clients. Now, the reason it's 20% and not 33% is because even some of the good clients don't use you. Even some of the people who can qualify end up not using you. Maybe you turned them off because of how you dressed. Maybe you didn't call them back soon enough. There's all kinds of reasons why that can happen. So it's about 20% closing ratio. And most of those 20% that close are the first third of leads. They are the good leads. They are people that can afford it, they are motivated to buy, and they're ready to go. So if I wrap all this into another podcast that I did about the target marketing, if you exactly target market the exact client that you want, and that's what you spend 90% of your time on, you're going to find that 1/3 goes up to about 55%. So understand what I just said. Through effective target marketing, you can actually change the mix of your consumer. So if you are at 33% of your leads are good, and you go to 55% of your leads are really good to great leads, what's going to happen to you and your team? You're going to spend less time on talking to people who don't want to buy or are just using you for information, or they can't afford your product or service. You're going to almost double the amount of time that you spend with the good leads. What that's going to allow you to do is double your income or increase your income 40, 50, 60%. That's how that translates. Now, if you're like me, for the longest time, I oversimplified this process. And I just thought, hey, I'm going to get 100 leads no matter what, so I can close 20. It never really occurred to me to get 80 leads to close 30 loans. But that's what we're talking about. So it's increasing your effectiveness level because you are not dealing with the bottom 66% of lead volume. You're always going to deal with it a little bit. I don't know if it's impossible to be perfect. But when you target people from the very beginning, you will find that your effectiveness level, your number of loan applications, the number of people that are willing to give you money for the appraisal, all those things start to shift and change over time to where literally in a matter of months through effective target marketing, you can develop, say, 50 leads where you may have closed 10 loans from those 50 leads. Now you're closing 15. Now you're closing 17. That's the difference. When I coach loan officers, I saw loan officers do this, but I don't think they ever knew what they were doing to cause such a high closing ratio. And I, as a coach, I couldn't really tell. Now I know. Going through all this training this last 2.5 years, I now know what the difference is, and it's way different. It's so way different, I can't even tell you. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that this helps you to not understand how leads are categorized, but how to change your mix. Because if you can change your mix, you're going to be happier, you're going to make a lot more money, and you're going to do it with less leads. Or if you're greedy like me, you can just get more leads and make that much more money, which is what most people would choose to do. So I hope you appreciated this. If you know someone either in our industry or outside of our industry that you're like, hey, this is a good one. Like this is really something that this person needs to know. Take a second. They would appreciate it. Give back to your people. Maybe it's a realtor that you work with and say, hey, listen to this crazy guy for a few minutes, because there's not a profession that couldn't use this. This is that stuff that no one talks about that is super, super important to running a great business. Hope you guys appreciate it. Have a beautiful day.